You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I am your host, Cathy Biase, and I am an holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. On this show, we're talking about weight loss, and a straight line to losing weight just doesn't exist. There is a myriad of things to consider when putting together a comprehensive and successful weight loss plan. Eating habits, sleep habits, stress management, unhealthy relationships with foods. These are just a few of the things that really do need to be considered, as well as this topic of motivation. Why do some people seem to have it? How come I lack it? These are questions that often come up in the diet space. With us today is certified wellness coach, fitness expert, and author David Greenwalt, a husband, father, former police officer, gym owner, competitive state-level bodybuilder, and powerlifter. In 1997, at the age of 32 and a body weight of 235 pounds, David discovered an evidence-based approach for getting off his own 50 excess pounds and keeping it off for over 25 years and counting. Since 1999, through his company, Leanness Lifestyle University, David has been helping student members from every walk of life get the truth and strategies to lose excess fat one more time for the last time. David is a terrific talker. You're going to really enjoy his method of speaking. You're going to enjoy all the content we talk about, why the adage calories in, calories out is no longer a complete picture for weight loss. Maybe it never has been. Why eating real food is key for achieving weight loss goals, and how we can drive our willpower by really digging down to find our why power. Great show up ahead. Please stay with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes to talk with David Greenwalt.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome back, everybody. Today's show has been recorded, so no opportunity for calling in. We would love for you to follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all locations. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've been on an interesting journey, quite a CV backing you up. Tell us why it was the gentle age of 32 that you got this aha moment and really changed your trajectory as far as your own health and obviously the health of the people that you inspire.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't ask me why, but somewhere in my DNA.
Why?
Right. So somewhere in my DNA exists this gene that's been interested in fitness since I was a little boy. I mean, I wanted the President's Council on Physical Fitness Award when I was in grade school and got it a couple times. And it really meant a lot to me. And I have no idea why, but I was.
Is that award where you do like a whole bunch of different exercises and you get ranked?
Yes.
Okay, we had that too.
There's a minimal, threshold for each of them. And if you pass all of them, then you get this patch and sticker and certificate. And I still have those. So, but as I grew older, around my senior year of high school, a friend invited me to start training in bodybuilding with him. So I did, and really just, fell in love with that, got into competitive bodybuilding and powerlifting in my 20s and 30s. At that time, I was an Illinois state trooper, and I was running a company that was related to dietary supplements. I don't run that company. I don't have that company anymore. I don't sell any supplements. So I like to say that, but I was running that company, and I had started it from a little room in my house in my late 20s. And I grew it from that little room in the house to about 7 million in revenue and 45 employees over a period of 5 or 6 years. So it really grew into something quite unexpected. And I only say that because with that, I had tens of thousands of customers, and the internet was just coming in. And again, I had done bodybuilding and powerlifting. And as a part of powerlifting, the idea is to get, big and strong. Well, I'm only 5'10", and I had gotten to 235 pounds. So now I'm, what you had said, I'm in that early 30s area. The internet's just coming in. I'm an Illinois state trooper. I'm running the supplement company that I started. And on one particular evening after powerlifting for about 10 years, I remember watching TV out the bottom of my feet, meaning I was laying on my back on the couch and I was watching TV, and the TV was past my feet. And I remember looking down, and I'm laying on my back almost flat, and my belly was still sticking up, quite a lot. And I thought, oh, David, it's, you've kind of gone from, you want to get big and strong powerlifter to, that pound bag of M&Ms before, as a pre-workout is probably unnecessary. And so I decided that it was time to, reel it in and get to a healthier weight again. And so I did, and I did another bodybuilding show. And from that, I came at it different than I had done it in the past. I really wanted to come at it from an evidence-based perspective. Owning that supplement company, I had done a monthly newsletter. And with that, I would always go and read the research and then write about the research regarding supplements and health and fitness. So I really wanted to come at this show and get lean with an evidence-based approach instead of just folklore and, tales and things that just didn't make any sense, but that are just kind of passed down and handed down, So I did. And I was 32 at that time. I lost 50 pounds, and I have maintained that 50-pound loss for 25 years now and counting.
Well, congratulations. When this idea of bodybuilding and building, excessive muscle and so forth, how did you find that you got into this excessive weight category that, we're lifting weights, we're trying to build this lean muscle mass. Where was this, the disconnect between your body image and what you were doing?
So for me, I wouldn't say that I'm someone who is classic, struggling to, I am not my, well, let me say this. In one way, I am very much my average client. And in another way, I would say I am not my average client. When I was really heavy, I wanted to be heavy for powerlifting. And, I got to the point where I could squat 600 pounds, bench almost 400, deadlift almost 600 pounds. So I'd gotten quite strong. I was a state level competitor, not national or world or anything, but state level. And so for me, it wasn't as much a disconnect as it was get big, get strong. But I just had gotten to the point where I was just tired of that. And I also was at the point where I was just no longer okay with being the size I was. So with that realization, like I say, I can still picture it in my mind when I was watching TV and saw my belly. I just said, that's enough. And that's when I, again, applied that evidence-based approach, came at it that way. Then I wrote about that. I wrote a book, created the program that I work with clients with now in 1999. So I say that in a lot of ways, in that way, I should say, I'm not my average client who has struggled a long time to get the excess weight off and keep it off. But in another way, I am very much my average client because I always say this, I have no genetic advantage for getting lean and staying lean. My body, if I don't do the same things I recommend for my clients, if I really don't do that, if I don't walk the walk, I can blow up and get very large, quite fat, very easily. And so in that way, I would say I'm very much, like the average person who is struggling. And that's a good thing because as a coach, I know what it takes. I know what I have to do. I know what's necessary. And I'm not gifted. I would say I'm not gifted for leanness. So, a little different for me because of this whole bodybuilding, powerlifting, fitness-oriented mindset, but also the same because I have no gifts for being lean.
There's so many things that I can take away from that. Did you have a moment in time? Because I think, there are some myths that we need to debunk here. There are some approaches to eating that maybe we could touch upon in your own journey. Now, when you were lifting weights and trying to get big, what was the nutrition plan like for that? Were you following a very healthy nutrition plan, or was it eat to get big, big, big?
What you just said in the latter part there, as a powerlifter, not as a bodybuilder, as a powerlifter, it was eat to get big, big, big. Yeah, it was, there were a tremendous number of ultra processed foods, calorie dense foods. And of course, there was a substantial amount of a variety of what would be called real food proteins and carbs and fats and things. But there was a lot of processed food in there as well. Like I said, I somewhat jokingly say that, that pound bag of M&Ms as a pre-workout wasn't necessary. It might not have been a pound bag of M&Ms, but that type of thing, to have the calories be at the level that I needed to have them to be 235 pounds, there was a lot of processed food going on there.
Is it calories in, calories out? I mean, we still to this, I'm asking this question because I know the answer. But to this day, I will still hear, because I see the workout space. I'm involved in the workout space. I'm involved in the nutrition space. I still hear, if you want to get big, you got to eat. And that's the end of it. A calorie in versus calorie out for weight loss. And still to this day, we don't pay, in my humble opinion, enough respect to the type of calorie. And you'll have people going to say, well, calorie is simply a unit of energy. But in your research, in your dealing with people, to me, this is the biggest thing. Is it true that a calorie in, calorie out can achieve what you want to achieve, whether it's gaining weight or losing weight?
Well, a calorie is not a calorie. And, it used to be thought, and for decades, that a calorie was a calorie. Just as long as you maintained the total amount of energy input,
right.
then it just didn't matter. If you had 1,000 calories of butter, it's the same thing as 1,000 calories of chicken breast, and that is not the case. Or 1,000 calories of, probably better stated, 1,000 calories of Lucky Charms is the same thing as 1,000 calories of broccoli. No, it's not. And the research now is finally starting to catch up with what I saw. I've been online working with people, just online, virtually, for 23 years. And early on, I'm an avid reader of peer-reviewed published research. And I remember reading this, going, a calorie is a calorie. As long as you maintain the calorie amount, then it doesn't matter. And I just remember shaking my head going, gosh, in the real world, working with real people, boots on the ground, I don't see that. I see an advantage for people who are eating real food, and I can, define that so we know what we're talking about. And I see a disadvantage for the people who are trying to just do, there was something it's not as popular now, but it's still out there. And it's something called If It Fits Your Macros. And I don't know if you've heard that or not, but if It Fits Your Macros basically says, and I'm not saying that they promote unhealthy eating. I'm not saying they promote, everybody to eat a bunch of ultra processed food, but the message kind of is interpreted by people in the If It Fits Your Macros genre, that as long as calories, carbs, proteins, and fats are where they need to be for you, it doesn't matter. And I just did not find that in my practice with real people. I found, as I said, advantages for people who ate more real food, disadvantages for people who ate more ultra processed food, even if calories were the same, even if the macros were the same. So with regard to that, no, a calorie is not a calorie.
Was this the biggest stumbling point you found with your clients? Was changing up the nutrition plan, or is there another big piece of the puzzle that you found was just something that had to be dealt with pretty much across the spectrum of clients when they're trying to, and then we're talking about getting healthy, right?
Right.
Which can mean losing weight. It can mean gaining weight. What are the commonalities you see with people who struggle?
So I'll say this. This is a kind of a macro view. It's a collective view. I'm very much against a reductionist kind of view, single bullet kind of view, where we assign too much priority, too much worth or value to a single thing. But with that in mind, what I'll say is, I need to say something about the calories in, calories out. So a calorie is not a calorie. However, the math with regard to energy input, energy expenditure can be estimated quite closely from a mathematical equation for someone. For example, Cathy, I'm just saying your name. I have no, whatever. It's not about somebody needs to lose weight or not, but just because you're in front of me and I've got your name. If Cathy, whatever height, whatever weight, whatever, Cathy wanted to lose 10 pounds of fat, we could estimate quite closely how many calories a day Cathy is going to need, or anybody. I'll quit using your name because
that's fine.
It doesn't really matter. It's just anybody. We can estimate quite closely how many calories they're going to need based on their output. And over a period of, say, 6 weeks, we're going to hit it really close. If the behaviors are consistent to actually take in the amount we have calculated. So it's kind of odd, but a calorie is not a calorie because the benefits of real food over ultra processed food are tremendous and numerous. And there is an advantage. You can actually consume a few more calories with real food than you can ultra processed food. But even so, the laws of thermodynamics and the math on paper will hold almost, invariably quite true. But it's if we can get the boots on the ground, real world behaviors to stay consistent, to have the energy input and the energy output to match, the math that we've put on paper. So no, calorie is not a calorie, but I say it this way: calories are king, but they're not the only thing. Calories are king, but they are not the only thing. People say, well, calories don't matter. Yes, they do. In fact, calories are king, but they're not the only thing. There are a number of other factors that come in. So that was kind of the intro to answering actually your question, which is, what is it that is the biggest kind of nemesis of people who are struggling to win this, in a permanent way, which in our view, it's the only way to approach this. No one wants to lose the excess and regain it unless they're, getting ready for, again, a bodybuilding show, or if someone is a gymnast or it's something, a wrestler or somebody that needs to make weight for something that may be different. They may want to get down to a certain weight and then come back up. But otherwise, the everyday person, which is who I work with the most, from every walk of life, wants to lose it, the excess that is, get to the healthier, leaner place, and they want to live there. And here's the collective, the big thing. All things that promote all of the obesogenic factors that promote the excess consumption of ultra-processed food, including the fact that ultra-processed food is addictive itself, all of those factors collectively are the single greatest factors that are impacting obesity and the reason that people struggle to either get weight loss or keep it off.
As much as we want that single bullet, I totally agree with you. When I work, weight loss is really not the area that is my specialty, but I approach weight loss from a mental attitude, from a lifestyle attitude, and from a nutrition piece. And I don't think, someone will come in and say, it's my hormones blocking me, or it's this, that, or the other. But I think that in order to have, to avoid this yo-yo dieting, to avoid this up and down with gaining and losing weight, you do have to maybe right out of the chute say, this is not a single bullet that we have to discharge. This is a lifestyle thing. And I think this is where you're hitting pay dirt here, is because you have to change the outlook. I think you have to change the mentality. And this can be difficult. Before we go to break, I have a question for you. We talk about lean muscle mass and losing weight. And I statistically, there are more women in the camp that want to lose weight than men. And there are a lot of women hung up on this last 10 pounds. As we age, should not our outlook, but should our perception of weight change? I think the body is a beautiful thing. I think that, as we age, certain dynamic processes happen. And maybe there comes a point where we need to let go of certain ideologies. If you know what I'm saying, like maybe that extra 10 pounds when you're 55 or 60, if you're at a decent weight, shouldn't be the concern. Have you seen that? Am I off base with that at all?
No, I don't think so. I would say it this way. I think we're in agreement, but I want to make sure that I kind of define, that the span that we may be talking about. So this isn't a perfect measure of kind of general leanness or fatness, however you want to say it. But body mass index is a calculation where I'll just give the calculation out that anybody should remember, because you can just Google what's my BMI, what's my body mass index, and you can find out what your BMI is. But it just so people know that it is a calculation. It is, in the United States anyway, it would be weight in pounds divided by height in inches squared times 703. All right, fine. This calculation, who cares? But I just want to say it because it is a calculation used in medicine and science and health to stratify and help identify kind of where people are. So with regard to those extra 10 pounds, I promise I'm going to get that. So if you're considered to be at a quote normal healthy weight, if your body mass index, your BMI, is between 18.5 and 24.9. All right. If you look up your BMI, it'll tell you what it is based on that calculation I just gave. You are overweight if your BMI is 25 to 29.9. You're obese if your BMI is 30 and above. And then there are classifications of obesity, class 1, class 2, class 3, that are, higher levels, above 30. And so what I would say is, regardless of age, but I would say in agreement with you, especially if you are in, kind of middle-aged or later, do you need to be under, have your BMI under 25 to be okay, to be healthy, to feel and do and have and be just all the things that you want, to be able to go and do, and to hit every metric that can be measured, every biomarker, everything from blood pressure to fasting glucose to HDL to triglycerides and so on. Can we hit all those numbers and be incredibly healthy and fit if our BMI is 25, 26, 27? Yes. Unequivocally, yes, if we're doing the behaviors that support it. Absolutely. Now, that 10 pounds thing and kind of just kind of an acceptance, let's say we're just going to go into acceptance mode at any weight. Whatever a person does, there's no judgment for me at all. Every person has an inalienable right to their humanity and deserves respect and love and all the things that they're just trying to be, in my opinion, just trying to be a decent, good person in society, regardless of size or anything else. But I am concerned if someone is obese. Mm-hmm. BMI as defined, not an adjective, as defined by that BMI of 30 or greater. And the reason that I really started there as a real concern is because the research, again, the body of evidence, the totality of the research is very strong that once we get to the obesity classes, our risk of non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular disease risk, diabetes, cancers, autoimmune disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and so on, goes up tremendously. And the higher the obesity class, the worse it is. Health span worsens, lifespan worsens, functionality often worsens. It's not uniform. It's not 100% across the board. But if we were looking at 1 million people, and we were seeing, this million people had a BMI of 30 or greater, there are going to be increased risks that are concerning to me and are not at that level. When someone's at that level of obesity or of overweightness, at that point, it then becomes something where obviously personal choice, do your thing. But I, as a health coach, will be concerned for you because of those increased risks, where I wouldn't want someone to say, if I could wave a magic wand is what I mean. I wouldn't want someone to say, another 10 or 15 pounds won't hurt.
Fair enough.
You're in a class where it likely is going to hurt eventually, even if it hasn't now. But again, going back to, do you have to have that quote unquote perfect, healthy, sub 25 BMI to be okay? No. And especially, and that's why I'm very much in agreement with what you started this with, very much in agreement, being in the late 50s myself and having a very, intimate understanding and working with so many clients that are north of 40 and north of 60 now. I don't see the advantage. I can't give you an evidence-based, strong advantage to being there unless it's just a personal goal you have. You say, I just feel better when I'm in this weight range. I just think I look better. I think I feel better. I just energy, blah, blah, blah. I feel better in my own skin or whatever when my BMI is here.
Which is fine, right? And then that's, as you said, your own personal decision. David, we're going to take a quick break right now. We're going to come back and pick this up because I really want to talk about motivation here. And I think we're ending up on this plateau where we can jump right into that conversation. So everybody will be back in just a couple of minutes.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Cathy Biase.
Welcome back, everybody. We're having a terrific conversation here with David Greenwalt. David, to continue on, I think we can follow along and continue with the same motif, but expand on it. It's the new year. Well, it's the beginning of the year. It's in January right now. This probably air in February, but early on in the year. And, people set New Year's resolutions. I was reading that about 38% of adults do set New Year's resolutions. And the top 3 resolutions are all within the health space: eating better, exercising more, losing weight. And about 23% of those people quit the first week, and only 36% make it past the first month. So here, we set great goals. We know what's important. We may even know how to exercise. We may even know, and I want to run into a lot of these people. I know what exercises I need to do. I absolutely know how to eat healthy. Is this all a picture of an unmotivated group of people in your estimation?
No, it's not. And, I think one of the biggest myths is kind of a belief by most people. See, we all eat, we all move. And because we all eat, and because there's tremendous amount of stuff in this, everything from social media to regular media to print, television, you name it, and just life experience, there is a belief at a certain level for a lot of people, not all, that they know what to do. They just need to do it. I know what eating healthy is. I know that I need to move more. So I know what to do, and I just need to do it. In our obesogenic society, with so many external and internal factors driving the excess consumption of ultra-processed food and, of course, energy intake from that, with that being the case, what I'm going to suggest strongly is people don't know what to do, so they can't just do it. And they're not, lacking necessarily in motivation, but they may be lacking in why power. So let's say, because one of the things we do, with my program, working with people, is we make sure we educate them on what's real with regard to food, what's real with regard to nutrition overall. What is, I don't look at food as good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. I look at it as 2 things. Is it real food, and does it work for you? And so we establish all of this knowledge and make sure they really have it. So instead of assuming they know what to do and they just need to do it. We're going to make sure they know what to do nutritionally. All right, let's say that happens. We've got that. They now know it. If I was to quiz them and say, do you know what to eat? And they're able to, reflect back and tell me, and I'm happy with the answers. All right, they've got the nutrition. On movement, we can teach them what they need to know about exercise for health in about an hour. And I used to say, we can teach them what you need to know about nutrition for health in about an hour. So let's say those things are in place. So let's say those are the mechanics of energy expenditure and energy intake, calories in, calories out. So that for that part, they quote, know what to do. Now they just need to do it. Well, anytime we have just in the phrasing for weight management, we're in trouble because we've reduced it down to an oversimplification. And so there are 3 other major components, major areas that need to be addressed that we do with our clients. And that is driving willpower through why power. So one of them is that driving willpower through why power. Here's the thing. If I was to ask your audience who works for someone else, how often are you late for work? The answer would be almost never or never. I've polled my clients for years now on this, and that's the answer almost every single time. For your audience who may have children still living at home who they have to pick up at school, when was the last time you had a child who depended on you to need to be picked up from soccer practice or school and you just blew it off because you weren't in the mood? The answer is never, or almost never, or, oh my God, I did one time, I was late for 10 minutes and I still feel bad about it. And it was 5 years ago. It just almost doesn't happen. Well, going to work every day on time requires willpower. Picking up your child, on time every day, whatever it takes, whatever their needs are, that requires willpower. Willpower is just kind of my working definition is doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. So for whether it's going to work or picking up the kids or anything that you've ever achieved in your life that's been hard, it's been why power that's been driving it. When the why is strong enough, we find a way. And when it's not, we find an excuse every single time. That's universal for us all. So people aren't lacking willpower when it comes to weight management, but they are underestimating the why that they're going to need to create and define and drill down into to get to the heart of the matter for what's really driving them to want to lose 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds or whatever. Because if you come at this from the start, and I ask you, why do you want to lose 30 pounds? And they say, I just want to feel better. That's probably not going to be enough. Now, again, nothing's uniform across the board. For a few people, that will be enough. But for others, we're going to have to drill down and figure out what's really driving this desire to achieve the goal. Because if we get the why strong enough, then why power drives willpower. When that's the case, people will persist. Even if they're doing the wrong things, they will persist to figure out what the right things are. So we've got to have why power driving willpower. So that's kind of leg number 1. And I'll pause there in case you have a question about that one.
Strengthening the why power. So we talked, you talked about picking up the children, getting to work. There's also an accountability piece in there with those 2 scenarios. Being accountable to ourselves, I find probably isn't enough. Is it important to be, how can we introduce that piece of accountability to really drive in that why? Is it with a coach?
A coach definitely can add a level of accountability, no doubt about it. And it can be a really important factor. Here's what I have found with regard to accountability, again, pretty universally. In areas where we're not all that naturally acclimated, in areas that we aren't all that naturally proficient, it's not something kind of hardwired in us where we don't need anybody to tell us to do it, things that we just aren't that great at naturally, we all do better with an accountability partner. We just do. Someone to help us, someone who cares about us, who wants the best for us and can help us kind of honor ourselves, can help us be accountable to our own goals and missions. It's not somebody who's going to be a whip holder. It's not somebody who, is your warden, but someone who can help, remind that the goal is important, that, you wanted it for this reason and this reason and this reason, and can be, a bit of a cheerleader, but again, just kind of making sure that we are being accountable to ourselves. So that is a a success factor. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you can go ahead with the rest of your motivation.
Okay. So, and the thing is, with regard to whether it's work or kids or weight management, here's the thing. It's still why power oriented, even over accountability, because what you do is you go, why do you go to work on time every time? Why do you go to work on time when you're sick? Why do you go to work on time when you're not in the mood? You just had an argument with your spouse. You had this happen, that happened. You are absolutely not in the mood and you still go and you're still on time, because the why, all of the benefits, all of the reasons for going, your why for going to work on time and being consistent and being a good employee is incredibly strong. Same for the kids, incredibly strong, all the why supporting that. So the same is for weight management. Another thing that's very undervalued that we work a lot with our clients on is understanding that there is a real difference between real food and ultra processed food. And ultra processed food can be highly addictive. There's this message that's been out for over 50 years, Cathy, that is just all things in moderation. All you got to do is just eat less and exercise more, all things in moderation. Nothing's off limits ever for anybody, ever. And while I'm generally for moderation, what I say is all things in moderation, including moderation. Meaning that sometimes for some people in certain circumstances with certain ultra processed foods, because no one's addicted to chicken breast and broccoli, that's real food. No one's addicted to that. If there's an addiction, they're addicted to ultra processed foods. When that's the case, sometimes 0 is better than 1. Sometimes 0 is better than 1. I'm not saying for life. I am not saying that you can never have anything that tastes good ever again. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that even if that's the case, that it's necessarily 100% across the board for even that one ultra processed food item. But we have to look at that and we have to see if there's a compulsive overeating aspect, compulsive basically being defined as an irrational behavior, in that it's a behavior done despite negative consequences. So if you find yourself continually going back to some ultra processed food as a way to relieve stress, relieve anxiety, zone out, to get some kind of relief, to change your mental state, then we may need to look at that. And again, sometimes 0 is better than 1. Sometimes we need to go to none on that to win it. Now, again, not uniform. Every person's different. You've got to meet each person where they are. But so many programs, so many people, the dietetics industry as a whole, the public health communication entities as a whole at the government level and professor level, they're still teaching moderation in all things. Nothing's off limits, and I find that that's an incredible disservice and really sets a lot of people back, because what they do is they continue to try to moderate a trigger food, and it's like trying to moderate alcohol if you're an alcoholic, or it's trying to moderate cigarettes if you're addicted to nicotine, or trying to moderate crack cocaine. You're addicted to crack, you oftentimes can't moderate it, and sometimes 0 is better than 1. So that addiction aspect of ultra processed food is another factor that is really important to understand, work with someone who does understand it, and can work with someone that can help you develop your personal plan so that you are not continually consuming something that is triggering you to want more and more and more and more. So that'd be kind of the second big leg besides nutrition and exercise.
And that is can be a very, very slippery slope to go down for some people. And when you work with people, are you qualified to work with the emotional aspects of eating? I want to lead in here to your program and what you do. And we're talking about, not change just on lifting heavier weights, as you said, and eating, less processed food and more vegetables and chicken. There could be a whole other deeper dive component here. In your program, are you able to work with people that may have an addiction to food, for various reasons?
Yes. Now, what I always say is that I'm not a therapist and I'm not trying to treat or cure any disease, but it doesn't mean we can't talk, and it doesn't mean that we can't provide a foundation, a framework of sorts that is based in the addiction space, food addiction space and so forth. And we do. So, yes, we do have a a plan. We do have processes that can help the person who is more of a compulsive overeater, who may have some addiction issues to ultra processed food. Again, they won't be addicted to real food. We need to separate that out, because one of the things in dietetics they'll say is there's no such thing as food addiction. Mm-hmm. Well, their problem is that
that's a science now. It is.
Yeah. So they say there's no such thing as food addiction, but the problem with them is they're lumping everything as food. I don't. Mm-hmm. I separate it: real food, ultra processed food. So no, we're not addicted to real food. It's the ultra processed food. So yes, we do work with people, every single day. A higher percentage of people who are struggling and have struggled for a long time, regardless of the amount of weight they lose, will likely have some form of triggered eating aspect, addictive aspect that will need to be addressed to really win this once and for all. And it can be won once and for all, but that's usually a factor that has to be addressed, where in most spaces and places, they don't touch on it at all.
And we're talking extreme here, right? I mean, people are going to have a rough day and come home and have, some ice cream. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's when it goes off the ropes a little bit. And for me, I look at you as a health coach. I think sometimes prodding someone to look for answers, giving them questions to ask, can be one of the biggest things that you can do to help people. Because oftentimes there are a whole bunch of things that need to be done in order to, we're talking about making a shift, right? You don't want yo-yo dieting. You're talking about a life shift. So I think what your program offers is a really solid platform. And I think this is the way it should be approached for everybody. You don't go in there and say, I need to lose 10 pounds. You need to go in there and say, how do I change certain things I do so that I'm at the weight I need to be at? That's my approach with people. How do you stand on that?
Well, yes. I mean, each person is different. And I always say your goal is my goal as long as your goal is healthy. And what I mean by that is, as long as, for example, I do from time to time get somebody who's of a weight that is already quite healthy as far as BMI, and they want to get to a weight. I don't get this very often, but I'll get somebody that has probably some body dysmorphia going on, and they want to get to a weight that is underweight, that is quite unhealthy underweight. And at that point, I'm going to, softly, compassionately try to refer them to more of a professional in the psychotherapy space, because I want them to get the help they need, because there's a body dysmorphia issue there. But otherwise, your goal is my goal. There's a sentiment that, even if, let's just say that it's somebody, just using the example you gave, someone comes home and just has, a little bit of ice cream after work because they want to do that. Do I have any problem with that? Not if they are at the weight they want to be or progressing toward the weight they want to be, and they're getting the results they want and living the life they want. What I would say is, again, it's not to me about whether I don't look at foods as good or bad, healthy and unhealthy. What I say is, let's say, is it real food and does it work for you? That's generally where we want to be. So there's a Churchill quote that I like, that is, no matter how beautiful the strategy, we should occasionally look at the results. So let's just say that we said to somebody, you're all good as long as you have that, little thing of ice cream when you come home from work. But let's also say that person has a BMI of 34. They're quite obese, and they've been trying to lose, X amount of weight for a long time. They are not progressing. They haven't had success. It's been the struggle bus. What I would say is, we'd have to say, is that working? And it's something that we may need to evaluate. So, because what can happen is that bowl of ice cream can turn into a larger bowl. It can also morph into other things in the similar category or another ultra processed food category that drives and promotes craving, drives and promotes the overconsumption of energy through ultra processed food, because we almost invariably are not over consuming energy, as in calories, from real food. So ultimately, I think we really do have to Churchill quote a lot of it and look at it. It's hard to square up with the mirror of truth, as I say. You square up with that mirror and say, is this working for me? I know I've heard from people that I should just have a little bit and stop. But is it working for what my goals are for me? Not what Dave Greenwalt's goals are for me, but what my goals are for me. Am I progressing toward the healthy weight? Am I living at the weight that I want to live? Am I living the behaviors in the body, having the life that I want? If so, awesome. Then I'm totally on board. I have zero judgment, even zero negative about having, that bowl of ice cream when you come home from work. But we want to look at every behavior if we're not progressing or we've struggled and continue to struggle.
Fair enough. Look in the mirror, not to the right or the left. I think it's all individualized. I think what you're doing is great. And anything that moves the marker for people in the health in the right direction is such a reward, I imagine, for you to see your clients do well and to become healthier and live a life where they can move, live a life of longevity and being able to do what they want to do. I mean, that's what we all want in the end, I think, is just to be able to move with our grandchildren, get up the flight of stairs, look decently as we age. Longevity it's important to all of us, and it does come in different packages. I understand that. But what you're doing, I think, is wonderful for people. How would people get in touch with you if they're interested in speaking with you or looking at your program?
Sure. The easiest thing is, the name of the program is Leanness Lifestyle University because we're education based. 23 years ago, had I known I would be continuing on and be just as motivated and excited about helping people as I was then, because I really just have had this tremendous passion. Had I known that I'd be doing this, as long as I am going to, and plan on doing it another 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, I might have shortened the name. But anyway, it is Leanness Lifestyle University. So the website is shortened, and that's where I would just suggest everyone go. And that is lluniversity.com.
And we will definitely have that in the show notes. David, it's such a pleasure talking to you. The conversation was just so flowing. It was wonderful. I really thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really been an honor.
Everybody, we will talk to you next week on The Health Hub.